hopefully we will have a couple more board members join us in the next couple minutes. So I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask Sandra to record the attendance. Article 2, approval of the agenda. You should see in your packet the agenda for tonight's meeting. Take a look through it, and I will then entertain a motion to approve that agenda.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Thank you much. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Article 3, approval of the minutes of May 17, 2022. You should have also seen in your packet the draft minutes from last month's meeting. If you haven't yet had the chance to review them, please go through them now. Let us know if you have any comments, and if there are no comments, then I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. I think Renee had you scooped on that. Any further discussion, questions, corrections? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, very good. Moving on to Article 4. This is the part of our meeting where we acknowledge visitors wishing to speak on any item either that we have on the agenda or that we don't have on the agenda. We ask that our visitors limit their comments to 5 minutes per speaker. So I'll open up the floor perhaps first to those who are in person and wish to comment, and then we'll move on to see if there's anyone who would like to comment via Zoom. So if you'd like to speak, please approach the podium. Try to take turns, don't knock each other out. There we go, okay.
How you doing?
Great.
My name is Carl Nealing. I'm the general manager of soon to be Sheridan Hotel on 28th Street. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the bus system and how vitally important it is to staff our hotel. You know, it is going through a complete renovation right now. And when that hotel's in its prime, we employ close to 200 people that's there. And we have a lot of people that use that bus. And we have people today, even through the whole COVID thing, when the bus runs were running and everything with that, they use it every day. And, you know, those people that they're committed to their work. They're committed to bettering themselves. And a lot of them ended up getting promotions throughout the way. But that critical part of that transportation issue is so important for them to be able to make that stride in their lives. There's one gentleman that works there right now that I was kind of referring to. His name's Delane. For the first time, he was able to get his own housing, and he has had a car, but gas prices are so expensive right now that he's trying to just save and build a little bit for his family and stuff. And so it's so important that we have that service to provide a great service to our guests that stay with us, that's visiting the area, that also brings more economic dollars to the township, because when people come here, they go in other areas during their breaks for food or whatnot. And so, you know, it's just such a key element to the success of our business. And so I just I wanted to relay that because we got a lot of the hardworking people there. We're proud of our staff that's there. We give them the tools to be successful, and they want to stay there. And you know, we've had some hard times over at that hotel throughout the years, and finally we're back to the position where we're at again. And we want to make that difference in employees' lives to be able to better themselves, which makes the community even better and more successful in itself. And so, you know, I hope people are able to look at that. If there's any opposition to it, that, you know, everybody that is, I've seen that is using that bus or whatever is going there to have a job. And there's a lot of people for a real long time that didn't want to work, and labor's still a challenge. But if they're making that commitment, that means there's something special about them, that they certainly want to be able to be employed and try to do what's best for them in their communities. So that's all I wanted to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask you a question while you're?
Sure.
What kind of shifts do you guys have at the hotel?
We have 3 shifts, 24/7. So 7 to 3 is one shift. We also have 3 to 11, and then 11 to 7. And so we do, depending on people's schedules, because not everybody can make those specific times, we will make accommodations, to afford, employees that are willing to work. So,
Thank you.
okay,
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
absolutely.
Anyone else like to make public comment tonight?
Got better things to say. Hi, I'm Mike Kosmauskas. I am the president of the Building Owners, Centennial Park Building Owners Association. I don't know if you're familiar with Centennial Park down the road. I'm here. I'm totally against the busing. No, I'm just kidding. I guess I'm gonna take I could read down through my long list. It's gonna be more than 5 minutes, but instead of trying to figure out how to get rid of the bus, let's try to figure out how to pay for it. And I'm gonna give a little kind of a Freakonomics type of point of view when it comes to busing, because I know a lot of people like to count how many people are using the bus and then dovetail or divide in how much it costs. That's an easy thing to do. I represent a lot of buildings who get a lot of national tenants. And one of those national tenants has a long list that they want to check off. And one of those lists, even if they're sitting in California, they want to know, is it close to an airport? Is it close to an interchange? Is there places for the staff to eat? And one of those checkoffs is there public transportation? It's a simple checkoff. If it's not checked off, then the balance doesn't go in our favor. It goes to it goes somewhere else. And those national tenants bring in good paying jobs. Paying jobs that, they come here and they go to Starbucks, they buy Mercedes, they buy Subarus, but there's mechanics that's got to ride the bus to fix the Subarus, right? If we can't bring in those national tenants, we lose high-paying controllers, lawyers, people like that in our village that pays for everything. So if nobody rides the bus, we still need those kind of tenants. Does that make sense? That's just kind of a different point of view than the standard. It's good for people, everything he said. I agree everything he said. I just want to bring another point of view, from my point of view from that. And there's other point of views that I don't know. I know that I don't know what that bus does for this community positively, but keep in mind, if you make a decision to get rid of the bus, it might affect things that you don't want it to affect, that it's helping. So that's a business leader that's never rode the bus, but I still want to hear. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for
I'm-
coming.
You're welcome. I'm store manager Eric from the Walmart just across the street here. I'm also here to advocate for the busing system. I have a multitude of customers that operate through public transportation, but I also have associates that depend on that to get to and from work. When they get to work, they're really hard workers, and I want to second and third what both of those gentlemen behind me had said. Getting to work is just the start of helping those people build a better life. At Walmart, we have different benefits, including college education. So one day they might be the lawyers and have those higher paying jobs that he's talking about as well. We really want to help develop our associates, and getting them to work is where it starts. We have some special needs associates that are highly dependent on public transportation as they can't operate motor vehicles or whatever that their case might be. We have people working in our deli services, our home lines areas, electronics, all of those different types of areas where we definitely need to serve the customer so that they have the needs to provide for their families. That's just like the hotel. We have multiple different scheduling options, and we work with associates around the buzzing schedules. The weekends for us is obviously a very busy time, and that early Sunday afternoon end time for the bus has been one of those things that we've tried to work around as well for our associates. But a lot of customers also use the busing, even with Walmart digital pickup at the store. That doesn't really work for a customer that doesn't have transportation to get there. So allowing the option for the busing services has been helpful for Walmart.
Is Walmart willing to contribute towards the,
I wouldn't say no, but I would have to get the other authorization prior to saying anything else.
We'll be in touch.
You got it.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
thank you.
Do we have anyone on Zoom who would like to make comments? Nobody? Okay. All right, then seeing no one else in the room who would like to make public comment, we can move on to Article 5, which is discussion and consideration of the rapid bus contract. So as everybody knows, at our last DDA meeting, we directed Township Council to review and negotiate and finalize the contract with the Rapid so that we could vote on it at this meeting. It turned out that Township Council also provides legal work for the Rapid. And so we learned late last week that the Rapid wouldn't waive that conflict and that the conflict is governed by ethical rules that apply to attorneys. So Township Council would not be able to move forward without getting that waiver from the Rapid. So the contract has not been reviewed by council at this point. The current contract with the Rapid runs through August 28th. And although the contract in its terms requires that the DDA provide notice to the Rapid of its renewal by the 17th, the Rapid was aware that we were meeting tonight to make a decision about whether to continue. And I believe that the Rapid's budget meeting is tomorrow. These aren't ideal circumstances, obviously, because of all of the last minuteness of some of this information, but yet I don't really see this as a difficult decision. Prior to the last month's DDA board meeting, the bus committee recommended the renewal of the contract for another year to give the committee time to evaluate what other options might be out there for transportation and to evaluate those options to get community buy-in, to investigate funding sources, and then make a more informed and reasoned decision based on the data. If we fail to renew the Rapid contract, this would most likely disrupt the continued service. The Rapid isn't contractually obligated to continue providing service after the 28th. In fact, they're not obligated to renew the contract at all with us. They could decide to walk away saying that it's not that big of a deal. So I'm concerned about any further delay in getting this contract put together. As stated in our DDA ordinance, the purpose of the DDA is to correct and prevent the deterioration of property and to increase property tax valuation and to promote economic growth. And as we've heard tonight, we have business owners who have told us that discontinuance of this bus service would be detrimental to their businesses and it would cause them harm. And they may lose employees, and employees are difficult to get at this time. So on balance, I'm comfortable moving forward with the Rapid contract as written and execute the contract. Obviously, we'll talk about this some more, but I wanted to explain why I'm comfortable with moving forward, even though legal counsel hasn't yet reviewed it. The total cost of the contract is $218,754.85, which is under the threshold communicated by our township supervisor yesterday that would require review by legal counsel.
Whoa, there's no threat. That's a misstatement. There's no legal threshold that requires review. We have a legal contract that
You'll have a
Jennifer,
chance.
but don't misstate what I said.
Would you like me to pull the email?
There's no threshold.
All
There's no
right.
threshold.
My misunderstanding then, when you emailed the DDA yesterday, was that you directed.
All I'm a legal contract what, 218,000 requires legal review. That's
you
it.
used the figure $300,000 in your email.
Well, in the past, it's been, okay, so Jennifer, sorry,
Well, why don't you
317,000,
pull together?
284,000. A legal contract requires legal review.
I promise you will have plenty of time
You're
to
getting
address all of this.
Yeah, but I didn't say threshold. I just said our legal counsel needs to review our legal contract. I understand we already agreed to enter into a contract with the Rapids.
So,
But are you suggesting,
fine.
to enter into a contract without our township legal counsel, which
yes, I
we
am.
brought him, that's inappropriate. We brought our
is
counsel
your
up to
opinion.
speed. And we have he made a recommendation who we reached out to today and who's willing to do it. And it doesn't even take long to review, but it's
If I can
really
finish my
bad
comments,
practice.
you'll have plenty of time to respond, and I won't interrupt you when you do that.
Well, it
In
wasn't.
any
threshold.
event, in the email that was distributed to this DDA board yesterday, the suggestion was that contracts over $300,000.
No, that's not true, Jennifer. I
Right.
never, it can't, and I apologize for saying 300,000. The numbers in the past have been around 300,000. I said that it should be a practice. I didn't say there's no threshold. So don't say that there is when there's not.
All I'm doing is relying on the language that you have.
Are you
in
saying,
your
but you're
email.
stating that the township has a threshold. That is not true. So if you're interpreting that way, it's not.
I
We
think-
don't have
I'm
a
not
threshold.
interpreting anything.
I think we got to pause for a second, and that's one piece of this contract
is.
of which, hey, based upon what was said and misunderstood from the email, that's one aspect, right? But we're still talking about the busing service too. So
Right,
we'll have to take those as two separate
right.
discussions.
And I'm saying the
I'll
township
come
does
back.
not have a policy or a threshold of a certain dollar amount.
Fair
So
enough.
218,000.
So let's get away from that number for the moment so that I can make the remainder of my points, and then we can address that. Fair?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
big time introducing it with but yeah, go for it.
All right. Where was I?
Misstating that there's a threshold dollar amount.
Well, we'll get to that email in a moment then, I guess. I'll read it into the record. The dollar amount that we are talking about is, again, $218,754. This is an expenditure of DDA funds, not township funds, because the township's taken over responsibility for paying for the bus. So we provide 100% of the funding. These funds have been anticipated. They've been included in the DDA budget that was approved by the township. The agreement has a term of a year. It can be terminated by either party on a minimum 3-month written notice. So if we decide that this isn't working out or we found an alternative, there is the right to terminate the contract early. Also, and I think that this plays an important part of my decision. The language in the proposed contract is substantially similar to the language previously reviewed, negotiated, and revised by the DDA. In the past 2 years, we have substantially negotiated savings in the amounts charged by the Rapid because of a reduction in billable hours and a reduction in the billing hour model. We also revised the recitals.
I was at that meeting when
Yeah,
it happened.
You were,
privately.
and so we revised the recitals, which was also your very good suggestion, to take out some of the things that were thought to be one-sided toward the Rapid. So it's not as if we're going into this contract with a brand new document that hasn't been vetted and reviewed before. And given the circumstances where we're dealing with a potential interruption in service, it is my opinion that we proceed with approving this contract despite the fact that it is not reviewed by legal counsel. Michigan's Recodified Tax Increment Financing Act gives this board the power to enter into the contract and to any contract necessary to exercise the board's powers. We are just now learning of this policy or this statement or this leaning of the township to have contracts with an undefined threshold reviewed by legal counsel. I've asked for the
No
parameters.
threshold. There is no threshold.
So all contracts are being reviewed by legal counsel. Is that what you're?
No,
purporting?
this is a what, 218. In the past, I apologize for saying roughly $300,000 contract.
I'm misunderstanding.
So you're really going off on tangents. Legal contracts, especially as high as this, require legal review. The Rapids, there is actually, the conflict is correct that there exists one, but, and I'd like to hear from our legal counsel, he didn't work with this contract at all. It was not a lot of work. So technically a conflict exists. I am shocked that I don't understand why the Rapid would take such a strong position to just say no and not waive the contract. I didn't learn that we just weren't in the habit of having even legal counsel review these kind of contracts until the last bus committee meeting. Background, then I asked staff to, you said, well, we never have in the past. And I said, well, legal counsel needs to look at these contracts. And I apologize, but I didn't know sooner. So one, the rapid not waiving the contract is just silly. It's petty. I don't understand. But two, our legal counsel has someone else. It's not going to take a lot of time. It's very reasonable to do. It's a smart, prudent thing to do. And we already have someone else lined up who he spoke to today is ready to go.
But the fact of the matter is that if we refer this matter to legal counsel for review, we cannot make a decision tonight and get our decision to the rapid in time for their budget meeting tomorrow, which may very well mean that we have lost the opportunity to enter into this contract with them, because they may well set their budget assuming that the township will not move forward with the bus service. And that is not a risk that I am willing to take.
I didn't know either that before I became supervisor, there was no written contract. We just operated for a year without one.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Ben Swayze, our manager, because that was before that there was no written contract. They
Well,
just kept extending it.
That
So-
was a contract between the township and the rapid, not between the DDA and rapid. So I don't
think
have
we-
information.
We're gonna
about it.
end
It
up
was a portion of how it
in,
was split.
in two wild camps in where, well, one wild camp where we're not talking about the bus service. Yes, legal review, that's important. We're moving forward, or the discussion is about an email that was sent, right? And misunderstanding for what it's worth. We potentially can move forward where in principle, we agree with moving forward with the bus service. And we have a week that we're going to review it, do a legal review if that is required. I think we need to isolate as a board first, as a starting point here of, in principle, are we moving forward with the bus service based upon the proposal that we gave out at the May board meeting? And I think that's our starting point.
Wait,
And then
what do
now
you
we
mean
have to
proposal?
finalize the legal discussion, because we're in a predicament right now that since the last meeting 5 weeks ago, we never got the legal review of it.
Rishi?
I just have a real quick question. And I've obviously been reading the emails and kind of getting my assessment of what's at stake here as well. But when we're talking about a legal review of the contract, what exactly are we looking to dissect in that legal review? Just so I'm more familiar with what we're looking for in that document. Is this something that we're, do we feel that the bus service is trying to take advantage of us somehow, or like, what are we looking for in that contract that a lawyer would be able to see that we can?
Contract has never been reviewed by legal, never.
That's what I'm saying, but why
How
now?
do you,
What are we
why do you
looking
review a
for?
contract? Number one, there are words also that need to be looked at. Not just, this is not just a monetary question.
Protections.
These are words protection. So there's
Liability.
a lot of things that have to be looked at.
That's what I'm trying to
saying it's-
understand.
I'm not saying it's good, better, and different.
Right.
But that's what contracts are reviewed for. And the fact that this is never reviewed.
But
is
we're talking
incredible.
about the bus service, right? And about them
Talking about
continuing.
any contract for anything legal. You're putting the township into a situation if the contract is not reviewed, which is untenable.
I don't understand if it's such a drastic position for the rapid to take. I don't see a red flag, but that certainly is a
With
little
the conflict?
concerning.
What-
Yes, to not waive a conflict that really isn't a conflict.
Well, but,
Why don't we hear from our legal counsel who's talked and has someone else lined up who can review it
well,
independently?
let's wait a second though, because we don't want to put him in the position of having to dance on a very thin line. I mean, as you know.
That's his job. He's here tonight. Let's hear from him and he can
All
just
right.
give background.
Counsel,
So as you're aware, our firm does work for the Rapid. We did not review this contract. We have not reviewed it in the past for the Rapid on that side of the equation. But obviously we do legal work for them, which would require then a conflict waiver under the rules of professional conduct.
can you explain that a little bit for those members of the board that aren't familiar with what that means?
Yeah, so we can't be on both sides of a transaction representing two clients on the same matter, right? So that presents a conflict under the rules of professional conduct applicable to lawyers. What that means is then we have to counsel both clients and say, okay, you can waive this conflict and agree to have us represent both clients in the transaction because we're on both sides of that contract representing two clients. So typically in that way, we don't render an opinion on the terms, right? On the actual terms. And in this case, it would be cost, right? So if the township is willing to pay for bus service, and if they agree to a cost, then we're looking at the format of the contract, what it does provide, doesn't provide, make sure everybody's on the same page. For whatever reason, the Rapid decided they weren't going to waive that conflict. And so I am precluded as a lawyer from rendering an opinion then on that contract for Cascade and for the Rapid. So until I have conflict waivers from both, I'm precluded then from reviewing it and giving an opinion. That said, I offered the supervisor and the township manager a referral to Nick Curcio, who also practices municipal law. Talked to him today and he can review that contract. So it's really up to, I suppose, the township whether or not they want to refer that out, and specifically to probably the DDA as well about referring that contract out for review. But when we talk about thresholds are important. They're more so important to cities. So oftentimes, a city charter will contain a provision that says all contracts have to be reviewed as to form by the city attorney. It's a common provision in a city charter. The township, to my knowledge, does not have a similar provision, either adopted by policy or otherwise. So, I don't know if there is a threshold on
There isn't.
just sitting here, but I wouldn't expect municipalities to enter into large monetary contracts without some sort of review of a contract. That doesn't answer your question, which I think is a good one. Fundamentally, right, are the terms agreeable, right? That one, bus service, and two, how much is it going to cost? The contract itself then should be reviewed to determine termination provisions and scope of services and hours of operation, all those things, other things that would go into that. And again, I haven't reviewed it for either the Rapid or for the township. I've seen it, but it's not like I went through it to review it and gave an opinion to anybody about the contents, because I'm precluded now from doing so.
I think it's important to note that the Rapid is not a for-profit organization. It is an extension of government, and I don't know their exact designation, but it is they provide transportation services for the municipalities of West Michigan. This is not a go for the jugular profitable organization. Actually, before they're getting CARES Act money, they're running at a multi-million-dollar deficit every year before they get the additional funding. So this is potentially the service for the community for transportation. That is it. So that does not negate the fact that you should have, if you want legal to review it, that's fine, but we aren't dealing for a for-profit organization. It's a service to municipalities to support those municipalities.
I don't disagree. I just think that's all true. It's just our job is, everyone's got their different roles. And I think our job is to represent the best interests of Cascade. So I don't disagree with you. And hopefully they're not even in conflict. I mean, we already agreed to enter into a contract.
Mhm.
I just think it's good practice. And I'm shocked that it's just kind of surprising that we're here. Legal contracts require legal review. And I guess the hard deadline was set by the Rapid, yet such a silly, refusal to waive. And then they don't show up tonight. It's just, I'm not trying to kill the bus. I would say the terms, the service hours, I would be in favor of reducing them from every 30 minutes, every 60 minutes.
We went through this though. I mean, that wasn't part of our consideration as a bus committee, and we went through.
Wait, how can you say that? What do you mean it wasn't part of our consideration?
But I think right now we're nitpicking details as opposed to.
But you have to talk about the
So, no,
terms.
we will, but let's take a couple steps back. One is we've had multiple months to review this. You have been a part of the bus committee just as much as I have been, and Steve and Jennifer and others, where we had a chance to look into some of the details. If we compare ourselves to 2017, we've reduced the operating costs by $39,000, 39%, $139,000.
And that
We've
was because I
made-
sat with a meeting with Ben Swayze and as soon as, and talked to them about it. So I
We've made a
appreciate that.
lot of improvements to it where we're still providing a viable services for businesses in the DDA, busing services. So that was our step that we took. I think we can talk even further about, but I think we need to, as a group, let's compartmentalize our discussion points.
But we have to talk about the terms of the contract before we approve it. This is just basic.
and this is
We
where I
didn't do a formal, we approve the contract as written. Like, I understand that Jennifer, you, Scott, and Steve, I don't know if Steve, but approve of this particular attachment A schedule. I'm just saying, I would be in favor of reducing it, not every 30 minutes. I still, I don't know why that's an issue. You have to have the
So,
discussion.
but let's take a pause back. Where are you at in terms of that you would approve the bus service at a dollar amount? Because we would have to go back if we agree as a group of, we want the bus service based upon X, Y, and Z. We have to make a determination of what needs to be true in order for that.
How would you word it? You would modify, I talked to Ben about this. I would just say instead of every,
But I think,
Ben said that bus service was open
as
to
we
that. I don't
take,
know.
because we have as a DDA board, we've had access to all this information now for 3 months. So we've had the ability to have this debate. I think at first, we need to do a temperature read of where we're at as a board as it sits. And then at the end of the day, if we vote or if we get a sense of where we're at and we don't approve it based upon those terms, then I think the next threshold is, if in general, do we believe in the merit of the bus service, with the caveat of if this were to be true. Either way, we've got to make a decision today as to how we're going to proceed. No decision equals no bus service. So we can sit and debate the finer points, but
we did that last time as far as to enter into a contract. From my standpoint, one, legal contracts of such a dollar amount, $200,000+ require legal review, which hasn't happened, although we're lined up and it shouldn't take long. And then two, personally, and everyone may disagree, I would adjust, and I don't think that I would adjust the frequency of service to reduce the dollar amount.
If we're gonna move forward and we're gonna get a consensus here, there's a couple things I would just like to say, because I've been reading them as they've come along and I can see both sides to it. I can only speak as a small business owner because that's what I am, and a resident of the area. I think there's a couple things that municipalities and governments owe their constituents. Few of those are education. I think excellent education is the job of the government. Public education, public transportation, I think is a fundamental job of any government in any institution on any level. And public safety. I think those are three things that we elect officials to do. If government can't provide any of those three, then I think the competence of that board or government should be questioned, but personally. Second, we're public servants. No one's getting paid to be here. We're all here trying to do what's best for the community. And as many board meetings that I've attended, and I've been on that side of the aisle more often than I've been on this side of the aisle requesting things. But sitting here on this board, seeing three people in the room, three notable organizations in the room vouching for it and none against it, as a public servant, what does that tell me? Am I enforcing what I feel is right versus what the public wants? And I think you have to step back and kind of disconnect a little bit. And do I agree with everything? Of course not. But if businesses far bigger than mine depend on it, I know I certainly do. I can vouch for some employees that use it. But I also like the point that the gentleman shared, that there's so many intangibles other than just the cost of running the service. I think it's a disservice to Cascade Township. I think it's shameful if we don't have a good public transportation system. I'm not saying that this is as good as it's going to get. But if you take the only option that's on the table away, and we're left with nothing. Everyone that sits on this board can afford an Uber. All of us can afford an Uber, right? We can afford our own cars. I can tell you that that's not like that for everyone in Cascade Township. It's not like that for everyone in Grand Rapids. I think we're privileged and we're blessed to be privileged, but I've been on that other side. I've taken the bus. I've seen my parents take the bus when we lived in Kalamazoo, and I can vouch for the benefits of it. Yes, a bus runs empty. Yes, it costs probably hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for that one person to ride the bus. But just because they're disabled and or don't have the privileges doesn't mean that it gives us any right to put a dollar value on them. Just as education costs a lot, but we're banking that those kids are going to go out and come back and be contributors to the society. The same way those workers need to get to those businesses, all three of those businesses and countless businesses that aren't represented here. So I would just like to say that regardless of what we disagree on today, before we leave, it would be shameful if the Rapid wasn't a part of Cascade Township. How we get to that is our job, but to disagree on it is something that we can work on ourselves. But just to say, hey, we don't want it, I think that's off the table. I think we need to somehow come together as a group and say, hey, we're going to save this. It's going to be a part of the township. That part we need to at least get out of the way and establish, whether that's through a vote or whatever.
I think we did that last meeting, that everyone agreed unanimously to enter into a contract with the Rapid.
Sure.
The issue is the terms, and it hasn't been yet reviewed by our legal counsel.
So how do we get to that? How do we get there then? If we, because the primary impediment that I now see is time.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we have the possibility of someone looking at the contract tomorrow, is that correct? So we're gonna say, is that right or wrong?
I can't say
Yes
that.
or no?
Mr. Homier is the one who's talked to Mr. Kuchar.
Is there possibly a yes for tomorrow?
I didn't ask him about, can he review it tomorrow, but I would think he would, it's only 5-6 pages. I don't think.
Yeah, it's
It would not be a long review.
But do you think the Rapid is gonna say, well, we're gonna service you because you blew it by it? No, there's
They
a
never
45-day,
have done that.
45-day clause in there, which they must notify, yada, yada,
Well,
yada. But I think that 5 weeks ago, we said, can we do this? So for 5 days, things were just doing nothing. So if we have something in place where it's gonna happen in a day or two, let's have it done. But for gosh sakes, never should we get into a situation where we don't review a legal contract. I don't care if it's for $50.
Well, I don't know if the township
You're
has
making
that
a
kind of budget.
You're making a stipulation for the township, not just money, but language.
You have to have someone advocate for your interests.
But I
And that could be larger than the money.
Scott?
But I think we need to move to the conditional approval then of, do the temperature read of us moving forward with the Rapid contract. Once we can finalize it once legal has reviewed it, because if based upon the strong points of view, I think that is a reasonable action. But we have had multiple debates about the transit, and we cannot assume we have full alignment of people saying we should move forward with it. So I think therefore we need to make sure in principle, as the services times and dates or days of the week have been stated, do we approve that in principle? That is going to keep us moving forward, I believe. And then obviously then we have to review the contract quickly.
Do you mean in principle as far as, well, back, if legal counsel, if they, and it may not happen, it's a short contract, but if they have some thoughts or suggestions, additions, this would protect you, that kind of stuff. In theory, it's a non-issue, but I'm just saying, how do we word it to take into account recommended changes?
I think what
Which the
my
Rapid,
point of view is when you're dealing with the schedule, the stated schedule in the contract, we are approving that. In terms of the nuanced language that could potentially create legal issues for or conflicts for the township, they can weigh in on that, and that's a discussion with the Rapid.
Well,
Those
but
are-
I think her
could be
question
nuances.
is what's then the next step? Because you touched on a very good point. If legal counsel comes back and says, hey, I have these recommended changes, what can we do today to empower moving forward prior to our next DDA meeting instead of having to wait to come back? And maybe that's a motion saying, this board will approve the contract in principle pending review by council. And then you empower either me or Grace or both of us, and perhaps both of us is a good idea for a check and balance, to then approve the final revisions that council recommends, something like that, so that we're not punting the issue out, because I do not think that we have that time with the rapid. I think that they will wave goodbye
Can I-
if we say it's going to take another month.
Can
I
ask-
don't think that they will, but we don't know for sure.
We don't know.
Can I ask a quick question to the legal counsel? Is it the same, the contract that we have on the table, has it been the same for the last few years? Has anything fundamentally changed
It's
on it?
never been reviewed.
He
No, I
can't
understand
answer
that, but have we been using
That
the
doesn't
same
matter.
one?
Never been reviewed.
Well, wait a minute.
Yes.
There's two questions.
There's two questions. You're correct that council has not reviewed the contract, and I don't know that he can answer the question about comparing the contract to prior versions. I don't want to put him in a pickle.
No, you're fine. I've seen the contract. I did not compare it to any prior year, so I do not know.
I have compared it to prior years, and I've been involved in negotiating it over the past couple years. Well, particularly when the DDA took it over, and I'm the one that made changes to it, circulated it to the bus committee and to the DDA. I cannot say that I compared it back to the original generation. I compared it to, I think, to the last generation and one generation prior, and it was substantially identical, which is frankly why I made some of the changes. I suggested some of the changes that I did.
I
And Grace
also-
brought out some additional.
I also
ones as
believe
well.
Max did say on record that this is the same contract as previous.
Right.
I'd have to review the record, but I do believe that to be true because we started hitting on nuances of the contract, I believe, in a previous session.
With the exception of a significant decrease, we did decrease
We
it
did.
2 years ago.
We did, and we changed the schedule. We reduced the schedule a fair
I
bit
think
on
it's more
weekends
the
as well.
terms
Do you-
of
Yes.
the agreement.
They were, in my understanding, so that was, they changed because they used to bill us as if they got a new bus out of the garage and drove it down and it started, when it really is just an extension of that. So I remember the conversation when I first started as supervisor. I think that's a great change. I can't believe that we didn't have it before, but I do think that they were a little rigid in their reduction when they brought it up. And I would say, as far as the schedule, and I'm not saying cut the bus at all, but at the end of the day, we're the Downtown Development Authority. What's our mission? And everything comes down to a cost benefit analysis, just like businesses. And I would say a less schedule, weekday every 30 minutes. I'd say we go, and then you just count the dollar amount and it comes up the figure.
I hear what you're saying, and that may be an approach that we want to take, but I don't want to overcomplicate this execution of this contract by introducing that now. Because frankly, if we're going to make those changes, I would want to have a kind of, I would want to include that in questions that we're asking the
Sure,
businesses.
but my
Yeah,
question is,
that's
why
why I
didn't we
asked
do
their
that for the
schedule.
3 months that these have been circulating?
Right.
Like that, we're not
Correct.
doing a service to
Right.
our constituents either. Like, I'm not saying that you're doing anything wrong. I totally agree that there's some things that we can make, but I think at this point, frankly, if we're still having this conversation now, we fail the public. Those emails have been circulating for a long time. I've been reading all of them. And I think to come down to the wire at 6:13 PM when they're making those changes tomorrow, these things should have been brought up.
They're saying they're making those changes. I would say, as being part of the township, when you do your budget, I mean, this is kind of this is their spiel. They said it before, they've never dropped the contract service. In fact, they told our manager that they wouldn't drop it. So I understand they said it. They certainly have the right to do it. I don't think that they're going to. I think, but that's your.
But that's
gamble.
that's assumption versus fact. What we do know
No,
to
it's
be
a
true.
negotiation, it's a posture, and we're both
People do
guessing.
use that
Neither one of us
concept in
know.
negotiations, by the way.
Yes, you always do
Isn't always,
that.
yes, thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Well, of
So
course-
they use pressure and
Yes,
I don't disagree, but that is a negotiating tactic. But if someone is giving you a deadline for a schedule and we are playing with people's livelihoods, that's not a game I'm going to enter into. When someone let us know that 3 to 4 months in advance, that June 21st, when we met our last DDA meeting before they need an answer, that's when they need to know the answer by this date. It's not like this is not a back and forth kind of thing when you've had this much lead time.
It would have been helpful to, I think it's posturing based on what our manager Swayze has said and what they've told him and how they've never delayed the service. In fact, they even offered to continue it when we had it lapse. So I think it's just negotiation posturing and the fact that they wouldn't waive a very basic conflict that in fact isn't really a conflict so that our legal counsel could review it, which I apologize that that came up later. I didn't know that we hadn't had legal counsel review it. I think it's just posturing. I don't think they're going to. But having said that, I don't know if we're going to get down to the terms, I would say it's just a dollar calculation less like is instead of every 30 minutes, every 60
So
minutes.
if we're arguing for, or having a further discussion about like, hey, we need to reduce the bus service, then I think there's a further discussion about why we shouldn't change, the service as it's stated right now. That's my point of view.
What do you mean?
So I think last time we looked at it, if I remember reading the emails properly, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be reading it wrong. From these questions that were asked before, when we looked at cutting the times, I don't remember if it was exact savings, like let's say we cut the timings in half, then our contract wouldn't go from like 220 to 110. I think it was a marginal saving, and that's
It's per service hour.
is a per service hour.
And wouldn't that be a good question for our, I don't know, an advocate like a legal counsel to negotiate and look at with the rapid?
Yeah, but
I don't disagree that we should consider
Mike,
it.
go ahead.
I just don't think we should
Well,
consider
in
it
the-
right now.
But perhaps on
Wait.
this contract, looking in the future, the next contract, we bring
Absolutely.
these things forward now to say, this is what we'll be getting into. 'Cause I agree.
1,000%.
When
Yeah.
I look at the numbers, and I've spent today and part of yesterday going through all the little numbers in there, they're confusing as confusing can be, but I'm a simple man, so perhaps it's just me.
No,
It's like looking
not-
at a
it's
credit
not
card
just you.
statement, trust me.
If it's that complicated.
But yeah.
Scott,
But
But that's
Sorry.
what I
But-
think that's what we're advocating from the May, recommendation is that we are going to look at this with due diligence. By us sitting here cutting hours, we're making our own estimates as opposed to like going out and talking to the people of the DDA of, does this materially change, impact you to the ability to run and operate your business? At the end of the day, we've tried to engage the DDA district on each one of the changes that we've made. So we'd be flying blind.
Okay, but did we ask the business, how many businesses did you go to and say,
Right.
what would you contribute? Would
Well-
you contribute to
well,
talk?
that's going to
But
be
that is
something we
part
ask.
of us.
How many businesses did you go to talk that?
But
discussion.
let's take a step back. For us, as we're looking at it I prepared a statement, but that's out the window now. But the reality of it is that if we just found out that Meyer contributes to the bus service, right?
No, we did that a while ago.
Well, but they directly contribute to them over $7,000 a year. As we now have the ability as a group to look at it over an 8-9 month period of time, a funding model might be appropriate and we leave the service as is. We may find a feeder service makes more sense where we go down to Woodland Mall and run a feeder service to key points. I think the key message is that in the lack of us doing that due diligence, we potentially could fall short of our purpose as a DDA to take care of the businesses.
I think 1 per hour, everything's a balance. And when you look at what it.
That
What are we
is
basing that on?
opinion based.
Right,
What
that's
do you
just,
mean?
you're
Well,
just,
what's the-
you're
but
just
what's the-
chopping for the sake of
What's
chopping.
the every 30 minutes based on?
Grace,
I don't know.
When
That's
we
all I'm
sent
saying.
out-
What's
we-
the every 30 minutes based on?
in the
rapid.
last 3 months, we sent out a survey to business owners, asking them questions about the bus. And some of those were included in this meeting's packet and some were provided previously. And I very specifically remember at least one comment saying that the change that we made to the schedule was detrimental. I don't know which business that was. Maybe it was someone in the room, but we didn't receive comments saying, cut it more. We received at least one comment saying, we have had to make adjustments because of the reduction in service. So I'm in favor of asking the follow-up question saying, so tell us more about what kind of schedule would and wouldn't work for you. Making changes arbitrarily without asking those questions to people might, be a bigger detriment than we realize, because how would we know? We don't
Yeah, I
know.
think we need a lot more
Well,
information.
The other
from-
thing I just want to share is we're trying to land the plane here on the
Yeah.
discussion is if you take the top 10 DDA contributors, 40% of those individuals or businesses that are in there are from, I believe, the hotels. We've had one representative from there. And that doesn't include all hotels that are in our DDA. And the other thing is 30% of people in the top 10 are retailers. We've had one of those representatives, but there's far more retailers than the one that decided to speak on behalf of the bus service. So those are our constituents, in essence, DDA people who provide to the DDA. We've heard from them that really represent our top 10 providers of over $400,000 of DDA money. So I think we need to frame this up in multiple ways against our purpose, who our constituents are. And yes, we are the only ones making the decision because the township has decided we used to co-fund this together to help offset the costs. The reality is we as a DDA right now need to make a decision based upon the timeline that's been given us well in advance and based upon the facts that we have present from a survey that we've got, from the number of our constituents in the DDA, and in the feedback we've received tonight and all the information that we've received over this time. Yes, I agree. We need a decoder ring on some things, but give us the ability over these next 9 months to deliver excellence for our DDA and for our township. We owe that.
I think that excellence and our duty and everything, and there's always the DDA meets that by reduction in service hours, but if that's just one person.
Is there a way to move forward?
The
contingent on-
malfeasance still stands with
legal
not
review.
having the contract reviewed by an attorney. So we stand in malfeasance, but that should take a day, 2 days. And if the Rapid wants to say, we're done with you dudes because you took a day or two. long,"
Exactly. Then
it ain't
it's
gonna
really
happen.
not that important.
All
If
right.
the Rapid chooses to ditch us because of a delay, then what does that say?
No, but regardless of what it says, I think we've let them down. But yeah,
you
I agree with you. You're
understand-
right. They
Our
shouldn't
job
do
is-
that.
understand.
Our job as a DDA is not to,
But-
everything's a balance.
I-
Everything's a
I
balance.
think there's two paths here. There's a good faith one based upon the service as outlined in that contract that we agree in principle with that. And that if there's nuances that need to be addressed, then great. Second path is we're going to come back to the Rapid and ask to change service times and everything else, and then potentially other elements of the contract.
Right.
Then I think that's a whole separate discussion that could jeopardize our ability to move forward with bus service.
What if we
We're in
put-
the 11th hour.
What if we gave, go ahead, Mr. Holmes, sorry.
Both those situations, we're not saying not having a legal review.
Our well-paid attorney is trying to talk.
Sorry,
Let's
I
let him.
just wanted to let you know that I did communicate with Nick Curcio by email. He can have it done this week.
That's super
Great.
great.
Have it done this week. Okay, so would we, I'm not ready to make a motion because I want to try to talk this
Mhm.
through to see if we're all, because I feel that we're all coalescing into the same
I'd like to add
space.
something before you
Yes.
make your comment.
Yes,
So I could conceivably vote for this based upon legal review,
right.
but I don't believe we've gone far enough. I believe that we have to look at hours of service, and perhaps that's in that period of time, the 6 months, whatever it is, because it's confusing when you look at all the dates on this, and look at other things that we can do. I don't think that we need to have service at 10 o'clock at night. I don't know. I
Especially
look at
for
how many
retail.
people ride.
Well,
I don't know, but let's look at it. I don't know how many people actually ride the bus. It doesn't seem like there are that many people that ride it. But when you look at the chart that they have, which is convoluted, that's difficult to determine. Perhaps we can put a finer.
So
Say on
maybe some historical information would be helpful in this discussion, a little more. Because I do remember a couple of years ago when we did adjust the sort of schedule of service from the Rapid and reduce the days and the number of times on days. And that discussion was all based on the data that we had gotten, not just from the Rapid. But I remember Steve actually going out and doing his own due diligence of making phone calls to the business owners in the DDA district, asking them about days of the week, hours of service on those days, and actually getting that kind of data to help us in that conversation, where we then ultimately came up with, okay, well, let's look at, because really the best value for us for the contract was really cutting out service on some days.
Weekend days, I think it
Right.
was.
But Michelle,
Exactly.
we mentioned reduction in service and the Rapid came back with like 3 alternatives and we chose, they said we could do this, this or that. And we chose one based on what people looked into.
And based
It was
on the
pretty minimal.
information.
True, but we based it on the data that we received
Right,
from,
that's what I'm saying, that we actually talked to people, we got some information about what the needs were in terms of, because that's really what this is about. It's not about what any of us wants, it's about what these businesses need and what we're willing to, and what we ultimately think is a good value for ridership, for the businesses, and for the township, for the DDA who's funding this thing.
Which is
So
kind
we-
of weird that the DDA is 100% funding it. I mean, at the
Well,
end of the day,
right,
Walmart's looking
but
out for their
I know,
bottom line.
I know.
we'll get
but
to that.
we-
I mean, I
right.
agree with you.
$7,000 for margin.
Exactly.
she gets.
So.
But let's focus.
All those
Let's focus.
points that you guys have brought up are captured in this now. We have 1 year and it's not about kicking the can down the road. It's about,
Right.
let's get dialed in on what
Yeah.
the appropriate transportation is for Cascade.
But we're a DDA
Is-
with
is a
limited funds.
precedent-
Look at how much we could save. If, I don't think we're leaving anybody in the lurch. If we reduced our service
No, the-
hours from 30 minutes, which the DDA set, to 60, and we say, we're a DDA with a limited budget. Granted, we're a wealthy DDA compared to more, with I think it's extremely reasonable.
But how
and
do we
not
make
extreme.
that decision?
Right.
It's how do we make the
How did they
decision
make
on
this
what?
decision? It's based on what
There's-
the Rapid
The
dictates.
way the conversation is going, there's something I just want to clear up because it scares me as a business owner. So are we saying when you are asking businesses to pitch in, so pretty soon as a Cascade business owner, you're saying that if I need police services, I'm gonna have to pitch in?
No.
If
not
I
at all.
need social
been-
services, I'm gonna have to pitch in?
No, there's been
So why are we
no,
asking businesses to pitch in for municipality services that we should be providing? Not only the citizens of Cascade, but also the businesses of Cascade that bring those people in. I'm like,
Mm-mm.
I'm frustrated about what conversation, where this is going, because I feel like it's an attack on small businesses.
Not
no,
at
let
all.
let me clarify. The conversation at the bus committee level was that we hadn't really explored public-private partnerships that might be with which business might be amenable and voluntarily participate.
But not required.
There was no conversation about any sort of a tax or an assessment, none of that. This was, and the example that was put forward was Meyer. Meyer pays a certain amount a year. They constructed a bus stop. And so the idea was perhaps there are other businesses
Sure.
that would be willing to do something similar because they see the value of this to either their customers or their employees. So that was the focus of those conversations.
I just didn't want the precedent set that for every,
That was
thing that-
never a
okay.
suggestion that it would be a requirement. So let me put your mind at ease there.
Again, that's the spirit of public and private
Yeah.
partnerships. And I think the other aspect is those discussions take more than 24 hours, right? If we're even going to have any type of partnerships,
Mhm.
right? This is going to be a process over this coming year.
Somewhere in the
Other-
background, we have a fiduciary responsibility also.
Well, we do. And I mean, I think that we are really all rowing in the same direction on this topic. We're all in agreement that we need to continue this service, but we need to investigate options and how we can make it better, how we can make it more cost effective, whether there are alternatives, and what would serve our constituents best. I appreciate all of the things that you're saying about changing service hours, but changes that we might try to negotiate would be completely arbitrary unless we get input about what those changes might mean to the people who actually rely on the bus service. So I'm not in favor of tasking council to this week try to negotiate those terms. I would be completely in favor of having council review the contract to make sure that the DDA's interests are protected, to make sure that we're not getting screwed over.
and then on the next one, we can
Enforced
go
terms.
through the finer
And
details.
then, you know what, this contract can be terminable on 3 months' notice. If we come up with a solution and we decide we've got this alternate plan, either we can adjust the schedule if that's, warranted by the input, or we go with this alternate plan, we can terminate the contract on 3 months' notice. But even if we don't, it's a year, and that gives us the time that the bus committee said that they needed to investigate what makes the most sense for everybody, both from a cost perspective and a service perspective. So the idea that I wanted to try to talk through to see if we had consensus before I make a motion is that we can talk about approving the contract with the ITP, subject to review by Township Council for protections of the DDA's interest. And after that review has taken place, and maybe this is a separate vote, we need to empower someone to execute the contract without having to come back to the DDA. And I'm not sure if you can weigh in on how we might, whether that is something that we can do, Mike? Or
Yeah,
whether that falls within what you can't talk about.
No, I think that for any contract, you should authorize the signature of it when it meets that criteria, right? So if you have a legal review of that, then who does that attorney report those issues? Like, let's just suppose that there's a major issue, right? Who gets to resolve that then?
I think it should be a paid member of the Cascade Township, not the voluntary board.
Well, the statute gives the DDA the right to enter into contracts.
Right.
Right, and so
Right,
it is.
but if there's a problem with the contract or something is
Well-
happening, then I think that we weigh in, but ultimately the day-to-day operations are gonna have to be handled by someone that's.
Well, let me ask this.
I think Jennifer's idea was good.
Do
They
we,
toss it in our court.
have an Open Meetings Act question if we resolve issue via email?
Probably.
Okay. So that's not an option.
Yeah, but you remember too, I mean, you could always call a special meeting on 18 hours notice.
That's true.
So, and it doesn't have to be just during the week, right? If you got to say
Right.
Friday and there was a problem, you can notice up a special meeting for Saturday morning, meet Saturday morning and resolve the issue. Not that you want to do it that way.
Well, of course not.
Or,
but-
or by telephone?
No,
No,
remote
gotta be in
attendance
person.
anymore,
It'll be your
not
Saturday.
permissible.
Sorry about that.
I had another question and my thought was that this engagement, and this is a separate motion that we'll have to make. I think that the DDA should be the entity that hires the attorney so that we don't have to, because I don't know whether or not the township board would have to approve engagement of counsel. I suspect maybe they would. So we can make the decision as our DDA board to hire this attorney whose name I've already
Nick
forgotten.
Curcio.
Right.
Yes.
And then that could also expedite this process.
The township is tossing in our.
And so I think,
Anyway,
right, that's very true.
Yeah.
So let me make that, what is council's name again, please?
Nick Curcio, it's a Curcio law firm. It's Curcio.
You have a telephone number?
I do.
Gonna put an advertisement out there?
I do. If you'd like it, I'm happy to give it to you, but yeah.
And-
Nick Curcio is a guy who has practiced municipal law for several years. I've worked with him on many projects and trust that he'll do a fine job.
And his billable rate is how
I
much?
don't know the answer to that.
So that was in an email that we received. Let me see if I can pull it up unless somebody has it. Sandra, do you have that information perhaps? I want to say it was 200 and change.
205 per hour.
205 per hour, which is a very fair hourly rate for an attorney. I would move that this DDA engage Nick Curcio to review the ITP contract on the DDA's behalf.
I second.
Third.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right. Go ahead. Did you have something? I
No,
didn't
no.
want to cut you off.
No.
Are we aligned to the concept then that I raised about then taking the vote to have council, to approve the ITP contract subject to council's review for protection of the DDA's interests? Okay, so then I'll move, and I wrote this out so that hopefully I can articulate it correctly. I move that the DDA approve renewal of the contract with the ITP, subject to review by Mr. Curcio for protection of the DDA's interests.
Second.
Further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so the next motion that we need is relative to the authority to execute the contract, I suppose. I mean, do we want to address that?
I think we have to have everything clear
place.
cut and spelled out in order for us to meet our timelines. So the answer is yes.
So, well, so are you saying that, who should have the signing authority? Should it be me?
Chair.
I'm the chair of the DDA.
Chair, you're
It seems inappropriate for me to make a motion that I sign the contract, so I'm gonna leave you all to
Just hear from,
discuss.
I don't have an opinion on it. What are your thoughts,
Yeah,
Mike?
typically it's the chair. that would
Okay.
execute it.
And that's totally works.
Would someone like to make that
make
motion?
that motion.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, I believe that that covers the issue. I would like to have Sandra communicate this to her contacts at the ITP to let them know where we are with this, that council needs to review it. He will have it reviewed this week, but that the DDA has approved renewal pending council review, just so they have that information when they go into their meeting.
I
Right,
will-
and she can.
And she probably needn't mention that we've done 5 weeks for them to work on it, but
Well,
that doesn't need to mention.
right.
Gosh.
No, but at the
Right.
same time, they're the ones that didn't waive the conflict,
Yeah,
so I think she
exactly.
can go back to them and say, you
I
didn't
would-
waive the conflict. like,
No
it takes-
apologies to them needed. I
Right.
mean, but still, I would like the message to be conveyed.
We don't know when they were asked, and it's within their legal right to not waive it. I think if we add any other comment in there, we just don't know.
I believe that they were reading
You're nice.
into our
You're very
request.
nice, Scott.
You
You're
are.
like really afraid of what the rapid is. They are
Yeah, I'm
not
not-
skittish. They haven't gone anywhere
No,
for a
but-
long
But
time.
I
But
think that
I'm
they
one of these
thought that
people
we
of,
were going to.
if I don't
rip it
have the
apart.
facts, I can't tell you an opinion. And that's the reality of it. And so we can all hear and
We're small
No,
business
no,
owners,
no.
we're always paranoid.
Yeah,
None of us had, I don't know, it is what it is. You're a very generous. You should work for.
I was
it-
think
negotiating
we're
a
on the same
contract,
page.
The guy bumped me into a wall like that, and I, what in the world? So what do? You bump me back harder.
Exactly. I would say, I think we were extremely wimpy as far as negotiating.
Well, I disagree. I mean, to
I
the
mean, we
extent
haven't
that
done
the DDA
anything.
was involved, I disagree that we were.
Oh, I'm not making it, this is not this is not to do with the DDA at all. I would just say as Cascade Township has been, literally one phone conversation with me and then two guys from the Rapid and Ben, and all of a sudden, okay, they're gonna fairly charge us instead of gouging us. I just don't.
I think we've made
negotiated-
very good progress with that. I mean, it's, we've certainly saved a lot of money since.
We've gone from
had that
$378,400 to $218,755.
Right.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
It's a lot
And I'm
of
not
progress.
saying- I'm not
That's a good
saying-
start.
Listen, and I'm not saying no public transportation. I'm saying at the end of the day, it's a cost benefit.
Yeah.
We are the DDA. Walmart cares about their bottom line. Like everyone has their roles. And I think this is an extremely generous, overly generous. We can all talk about feel good and giving opportunities, but it's money. So I think the
let's,
DDA is overly generous.
I will on the record ask Sandra to send out a doodle invite for the next bus committee meeting. I cannot recall exactly what our timeline was, so let me. pull
No,
it
and
up.
we've slipped on the timeline for
Little
the
bit.
simple fact for June, because we've
Yeah.
been in the weeds, just trying to get us to where we're at tonight. That's where the energy and hours have gone
Agreed.
to for that committee.
So I will just read off our decision path for the summer, and so that we
Yeah,
can kind
it's
of,
better.
because realistically, we will not be meeting until probably mid to late July, given the holiday coming up. We had in our bus committee memorandum, June 2022, investigate and analyze the full scope of services the Rapid provides the township, schedule, paratransit, Vigo bus, et cetera. July 2022, explore and brainstorm transportation options. In August 2022, investigate transportation options for the township to provide comparison to the Rapid services and costs. So I would like to have at our next bus committee meeting, a conversation regarding our action items for all of those issues, so we can keep this moving forward, because things get lost in the
And the
summer.
other thing is, for all the individuals here who had great feedback, include that and send it to us in an email so we can incorporate in our thinking for, or if you have additional thoughts to incorporate in our thinking as we charge the hill on transportation for the township.
Yes.
Do you remember,
The options and alternatives kind of. be- or
Whatever.
anything.
And I know that
Other
you sent
thinking.
one, I think, to Sandra already, an option,
Yep.
a potential options,
I-
right? There's, yes.
Michelle did, correct.
Chris, okay, so we all are volunteering our time to be here, right?
Mhm.
This is an option that McKenna, Chris Corey, who came, he stayed and listened to the public transportation discussion. And he did not want it to end. He wants to look at, there might be more efficient models that give a better service for less money. And he's real enthusiastic about it. And he's a planner. He offered that, and he had some creative, once he starts talking, he had some knowledge about it that I don't have at all. But he said, well, I could certainly look into it. Like, I don't know how much, and I'm just throwing numbers out. This wasn't discussed, but you could offer him, like, pay McKenna, I don't want to throw, $3,000, or I don't know how much they're.
I like where you're
I
going
would
with
rather
this,
do
though.
that,
Quick
and then would
study
they come to
on-
us, because I don't have the time or energy to do it. You
Yeah.
guys, and it's.
If he, let's add that to the agenda for our bus committee meeting to perhaps loop in, because I recall some of the comments that he made. I can't remember if it was DDA or
He
Township.
just likes it, the
Yeah.
topic, he's clever.
I think that
creative.
it's wise to consider partnering or engaging someone, even if we have to pay them an amount of money that we can
Well, we
discuss.
can do the
Consult.
They've got the,
legwork
yeah,
and
they've
figure
got the
out.
expertise and we do not.
That's their
Yeah.
job.
Yes,
It's a specific, and with a specific task, and he can do it, and then we
Yeah.
can,
right.
Good recommendation.
100%
Very
agree.
good
Awesome
recommendation.
recommendation.
what do you guys think? Do you think, like, he said, like,
We need to talk
5,000?
with him to figure out, because
Okay.
it's probably based on hours, and
Right.
so if
The scope of
we'll need
what
to
the
define the
work-
scope in order to figure
Yes.
out what the hours will
So
be.
Sandra, how about this? Direct you to reach out to him and give us a proposal or some thoughts on what he would recommend, what he could offer.
Okay.
If he can give us a,
But
you
we
know,
still should flesh something
Well,
out
sure.
for him to be looking for. This
Right,
is-
give him.
this is what
Let him
we were
talk, he's like,
framework.
this is his.
as long as we're not paying for all
I-
the.
It
Would
would
you
like,
like me to-
it would like
Exactly.
you asking me to talk about breeding Newfoundlands, and I would be like, you guys are getting the most bang for your buck, because I come with so much existing information.
So maybe
you
you
like me
could
to-
just frame it and ask him to do a best practices. Like, go do some research on
That's an
best
option too, yeah.
practices of what other communities
Listen,
are doing.
I think
I think
before
that's
we
too
ask
spec-
if
I think that's too specific.
well, but I don't, I feel like we're taking a
not.
little bit of a shotgun
He can do
approach
what-
here. I would rather we meet as a
I don't
committee
disagree.
to collect our thoughts on what we want to ask him to propose or do, rather than try to solve that here.
Yeah.
Fair?
Yeah, whatever you guys think.
Okay.
Sure.
And y'all are welcome to
I like the
attend
idea of
meeting.
taking advantage of his passion and knowledge, and then we
Happy
just
to.
get to rubber, or think about
Agreed.
it.
Awesome recommendation.
Agreed.
So we hold off on contacting him at this point.
Schedule the bus committee meeting. We'll discuss at
Yep.
the bus committee meeting,
Gotcha.
how to what type of
Services.
What to reach out
services we
with
would
him
like him
for.
to propose, you know,
Sure.
the scope of the services that we'd like him to propose.
Okay,
And it may be that we have tiers,
Sure.
we're only willing to pay X, so can you give us
Tiers,
1 through 3, or can you also give us 4, 5, 6? Okay. All right, I think thus concludes our bus conversation for today,
I think
correct?
we landed the plane.
We land the plane? Can we say plane?
Oh, we got a good,
Still have
Park the
wheels?
bus, park
we got
the
a good
bus.
start.
We
Got a
did.
good start.
All right.
It's, it's good to, and I apologize if it's hard to communicate effectively all the time, at least I have trouble with it. And I just think it's good to push back a little bit and have tough conversations.
I agree. And I
welcome the
appreciate
tough
that we can stay
conversations. That's how
civil.
you get
Done that.
to a positive place.
Yes.
That's how you do it. This is where we're at
Because
right
we all
now.
ended up in the same spot, pretty
Let's
much.
just say that the businesses and the Rapid got a pretty sweet deal, but
That's why we're here, though. That's why we're here. Thank you, gentlemen. You don't want to stay for the rest of this? It's all very exciting.
start
Okay.
thinking
Have
about
a good
how
night.
much it's worth.
Have a great dinner.
All right, Article 6, strategic plan update. I don't know that there's much of an
I can give
update.
you a real quick one.
Why don't you please?
Okay, this is directly from Danielle.
We should thank you.
So-
for
Thank you,
coming.
Mike.
Thank you for coming.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your help.
Very
Yeah,
informative.
Thank you. I sent an email to Nick, let him know that he'll probably be in contact with you. So,
I will email him. It may not be after this, but tomorrow morning.
thank you.
Next time we'll have you talk more to get more bang from our buck. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. It's my presence.
Yes, yes.
That's all we need. It kept us in line.
Nice.
Go ahead,
quiet group to
Michelle.
talk to.
Okay, so our advisory committee meeting is canceled for this week. Basically, they're waiting for the survey results to come in. So the second survey went out. It's been advertised to the public and the project website has been updated. There's currently 200 responses to survey number 2. The survey closes July 5th. So we'll discuss the survey 2 results at the July 8th advisory committee meeting. Make some final revisions to the plan based on that data. Submit the final formatted document for the township board packet by July 22nd. And the township board meeting hopefully will be in adoption mode on July 27th.
Terrific. So let's put this on the agenda for our July meeting, just so we can get a continued
Yeah.
update, but
Yeah,
sounds
so
great.
there will be an update based on what we know from the survey results.
Any questions? Thank you so much for that update.
Yeah,
It's
thanks,
helpful.
Michelle.
It's exciting to see this move forward. All right, Article 7, the World War II veteran tribute.
I'll do this one. It's gonna be a little choppy.
Okay.
Our local American Legion branch, post, thank you. And some members of the Cascade Community Church, a member, sorry, approached me, or the township, about this Virgil Westgate. Did you guys? Westdale, I'm sorry.
Big realtor. I don't think it was.
Was he a realtor?
Westdale.
Westdale, really?
Yeah, Westdale.
Wait, but he's Westgate.
Oh, I thought it said
Oh,
Westdale.
no,
No,
it's-
this is
it's
Westdale.
Westdale.
Yeah,
Westdale.
Yeah, Virgil Westdale.
You're right, it's Westdale, like I said. Sorry. Apologize. And it's 300,000 minus 100,000. Okay, I wish that I could reiterate as nicely as the American Legion folks did, but the guy had when he died, he was the oldest, the highest decorated World War II veteran. He was Japanese, so his name was, he was second generation, so Nishimoto.
Oh.
He took the Westdale translation when he joined in World War II because of all the prejudice and that kind of stuff. So, and he was, 30 years at Cascade at that church. He has a book, Blue Skies and Thunder. He was with first aviation class at Western Michigan. He had 26 patents in his profession, plus 5 additional that are pending. 76 years at the airport. Employee of the Year at the age of 86.
76 years?
76 old, 76 years old. He was
Okay.
a security officer at the airport before it became TSA. After it became TSA, at the age of 86, he received Employee of the Year out of 140,000 employees. He retired at age 91. But the real interesting fact is his service during World War II and people just his great attitude and that kind of stuff. So I brought it to the DD. I mentioned it to Ben, how we proceed. They wondered about the museum park. That what they had asked for was possibly, and he went to Cascade Community or Cascade Christian, so it's proximity they liked, renaming it in his honor and doing some way to commemorate him, and they liked that specific small park. And so it's kind of unclear, technically the board could do it, but I wanted to bring it by you guys and just get thoughts. And the American Legion in Cascade does that can drive at Ace Hardware, and they've been very successful. So they have, originally I didn't know this, but they have talked about, they have $1,000 to $2,000 that they could put towards a sign, like they want to contribute. But he just sounds, I'm not doing a good job of
What about
summarizing
what
his
park is it? Where is it?
legacy.
The park?
The one kitty corner from Tuffy.
The museum gardens?
Yeah,
Right.
Does
At
it
the
have
corner
a
of
name?
Historical Society.
Museum
No.
Gardens Park.
So
or-
who is the namer of that park? Do we
That's
have
what
the
I-
authority to do that?
You-
Or is it like the
don't think it's-
historical society?
I don't know that
No,
it's
it's
ever
not.
had
Don't
it.
give it-
I don't know.
Or what
Let's-
about our new,
I don't-
our new development out here? Could we do a bench?
I
for
don't think
him
it's
or
ever
do
had a clear
portion of the
name.
park or something?
I think they want it to be
But sure.
proximity,
Oh,
proximity
okay.
though.
Well, initially somebody said it wrong and said Church on the Hill. So I went to the Parks Committee, but
Oh.
then luckily that Andy Biermacher, the barber, the Cascade barber,
Yeah.
I went in there and he's actually the one who first brought it up. Then the American Legion
Oh.
people,
That's Andy.
yep. And then, so then the American Legion
Yep,
got in
well.
touch in Cascade, but Andy brought it first and he had said Church on the Hill. So that was kind of what the delay, because I went to the Parks Committee and then I'm not good about getting the boys' haircuts on time. So next haircut, he was like, well, it's actually not Church on the Hill, it's Museum Gardens.
So, I mean,
Everything.
So what do you guys think about?
I think it's a lovely idea. I just don't know if we have the authority to do it. So maybe.
PDA does.
Ben was the one who said, go to the DDA. So I think that we do.
So we
So,
do it and then ask for forgiveness.
right?
We
I
can't do it.
mean,
I agree.
I cannot imagine, I mean, does anyone
I think
see
we
a
need
downside or a reservation?
No-brainer thing here.
Right, like, I
after
think we
tonight.
can all,
This,
Right.
this to me, there's
Kind of a slam dunk.
40 reasons why.
right.
Yeah,
Good,
for
yeah,
sure.
totally.
And zero reasons.
So
no.
I move that we,
But wait, time out, let's flush it out real quick,
Yeah.
because I'm not disagreeing with you, and I didn't know what the response would be, because this is fantastic. I thought it should be a no-brainer, but I didn't want to.
So is there a flag in that park?
Good question.
I don't know the answer to that question.
I believe there's one hanging off the front of the museum.
But not a pole in the
But
park.
not in the
Correct.
park.
Right.
That could be a
Right.
great.
What
have.
about we go to the American
I think
Legion,
we
ask
have
them
to.
what their specific thoughts are, and then they can.
I like that idea. And then if we can come up with a specific proposal,
Yeah.
you know, because it looks like it's a little bit beyond naming the park. It's the park and the plaque and maybe a
Right.
flag, but I think that it would be accurate to convey that the DDA is very much in favor of moving forward with this. Let's flesh out the details.
Perfect, and then
Yeah,
possibly
okay.
work, we would be even, yeah, we'll work with specifics and the DDA would like to work with them.
The fact that none of us knew what the park was called
Right.
anyway.
Well, it's the Museum Gardens is what
Well,
it's
I
all
asked
about.
Now we
about it.
know.
But now we know. what it's
Now we
gonna
know
be
what it's
called.
gonna be called. Perfect.
Virgil Westgate Park,
Yeah,
just joking.
Very
it's
funny.
Westdale.
All
that's,
right.
that's good name.
Yeah.
Why is that so hard to remember? He had such, it was so cool listening to them talk about him, and he had such a positive attitude and such a
Nice.
cool
No,
history.
it's a
with-
pretty good feel good.
Yeah,
Holy
I love
smokes.
this idea. So let's make sure that this is on the agenda for the next meeting. See if you can squeeze out some information
Mhm.
to flesh it out by our next meeting, and then we can
Do
maybe
we need
make
the
a
attorney to
decision.
look that over though?
We might, every
You know what?
contract.
This is
Err on
not
the
a
side of
contract.
I'm kidding.
This is
Was it
not a
too soon?
contract.
We're gonna
Too soon.
install a flag.
Sorry.
Somebody's gotta be digging a hole for the
And
flag
this
post.
is
Can this
a
be our
balance,
first
it's a
topic for
balance.
the next meeting? So
Right.
we have a good one that's
Right.
just
Seriously.
good tailwind after it.
Do you know that that can drive at Ace Hardware was cleaned out stolen 4
Yes.
times?
Wait, what?
No.
Yes.
What do you mean? was
In the
clean?
last
No, they
couple
were
months.
stolen. People stole. the
They did,
cans.
and it was pull up, wait, but did they
Yes.
take the trailer or did they just clean
No,
it? I
no,
think
they
they just
just
cleaned
took
it
the-
out.
Yeah.
They like rolled up in a
No.
vehicle and
But they have them
A
on
U-Haul.
camera.
Wow.
They had them.
They have
the
them on camera.
security
But I
camera.
talked to the guy today because I
Yeah.
felt like I didn't do any preparation. I just felt bad that it took so long. And I asked if they had caught the people and they said no.
Probably.
all right, I
not.
gotta bring it back around because
Okay.
we've been going for a while. We got a lot more to go. Moving on to Article 8, review and consider LED street lamp retrofit labor costs. Should have given you a little more warning. Sorry about
That's
that.
all right, that's all right. So our street lamps are starting to come in. This is the project we had scheduled. Oh boy, in 2019, I believe, and we've had pre-pandemic, we've had some supply chain issues. So about 30% of the lamps have arrived. The rest should ship, well, today supposedly. So the contractor is asking about the potential for some additional funds for labor for this project. The project was bid 2 years ago. Obviously, costs have increased since this project was bid. And so they are asking for an extra $1,260 to cover the increased cost of labor for this job. The project was bid out at $68,141, sorry. With the added cost, we're still below what the next bidder's price was. So I'm just asking the DDA their thoughts on this.
What's that percentage?
Oh my
It
God,
was,
you're asking us to do math.
yeah, I know.
Math, math.
We didn't hear you, Corky. Let's just move on.
Just over, yeah, just over 10?
Well, I'll just give
perhaps?
perspective. We're getting ready to open a second location and we're bidding it out and it's $200,000 more than it was in 2017.
Wow.
So just to hear $1,000.
That would be 1.8%.
Yeah.
That's fair.
1.8%.
This is a
Oh,
rounding,
inflation.
rounding error. So it's incredibly fair.
I'm
So,
surprised it's not more. Yeah.
Would someone like to make a motion? I don't know that we need a motion, but why not?
Let's make one,
Let's
please.
make a motion. Would someone like to make a motion to increase, to approve the increase of $1,260?
Yes, I make that.
Okay, Michelle made the motion.
I second.
Okay, thank you very much, Renee. All in favor?
I.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, my favorite topic. Article 9, discuss holiday lights RFP. It's
Listen,
always Christmas
It's been
in
a
the
couple months since
DDA.
we've had this on the
Right?
agenda. I thought we
has.
needed to add it. I'm just looking for some clarification. Because a few months ago, the DDA board asked me to put together an RFP for holiday lights. So I'm just looking for some clarification on locations of those. So a majority of our existing string lights have fallen into disrepair just from salt and weather. And those were the lights that we wrapped around the streetlight poles down in the village. And in the past, the Buildings and Grounds Department have hung those lights for us. So I'm just looking for some direction from you as far as, do we want to add those streetlight poles into the RFP? Do we want to look at just purchasing some string lights and having B&G continue to put those up? I know that we were talking about the museum gardens, or maybe the new name. And then Tassel Park, the RFP should address those two locations, but just looking for some direction on the street lamps. And
What
then
do we
how-
do? So right now, just because I'm newer here, will you give us what we contract out and what the B&G does?
So we contract out the lights at the Museum Gardens Park and Tassel Park, and we put them on the river birch trees there. We put them on the museum building, the roof line. And we do the Kingsland Pavilion at Tassel Park. So those are the two projects that we contract out. Buildings and Grounds hung the string lights on the street light poles. They put up the
Stars.
yes, the
Snowflakes.
stars, thank you, the snowflakes.
Sorry.
Yes, the snowflakes on the poles. And they put up the fake Christmas trees at the bottom of Old and Cascade Road at the Museum Gardens Park and then at Tassel Park.
So you're wondering if this part should be incorporated into the RFP?
Correct.
Did you get the B&G's feedback? Because Jim, the director there, he has said that in the summer, they're really, really busy, but in the winter, a lot of times they're looking for projects to do and kind of twiddling their thumbs. So I just don't know if,
It needs to be contracted out.
yeah, because
that
if it were,
people handle it. Have they said that maybe they didn't want to do it anymore?
They
or-
haven't, they have not
Okay,
said that. So
okay.
I was just,
do you want me
I
to
didn't know
text-
if
You're
while
just
we were
throwing
putting
the
the
question
RFP
out.
together,
Yeah.
you know, that was an option for
I
us
think
to.
whoever's already maintaining the other lights should maintain the ones there.
Should we give B&G the option if, I could go either way, if they are looking for winter work? And then if they say no, just for whatever the stringing of the poles, and then if they don't want it, go ahead and.
Right, they're already
Bid
out
it
there
out?
doing the work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah, and-
question
and
though
they-
is, would this RFP, could this RFP include purchase but not installation of the lights that need replacing on the
Mhm.
poles? I mean, that might be the way to spin it.
How did we
is-
get it
So
in the past?
Maybe it's two RFPs than one for the purchase of lights. We
Uh-huh. I
I
purchased
like
those,
that.
we purchased those string lights from Bronner's whenever they held their early year Christmas sale in the
I'm
past.
not familiar yet with the Bronner's catalog. We do
No,
discuss it.
I'm from that side of this.
Well, actually, I don't think that's a bad idea because it would give us a comparison of what the cost is from a contractor, if
Right.
you will,
Versus. our
versus
in-house.
going to Bronner's and, doing it to
Yep.
see if we're actually saving any money or
Yeah.
it's a wash.
And you know
There
how
you
with, so my brother bought a Shine franchise, the
Yeah.
Traverse City.
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
they
They
do
put
windows,
lights on.
exteriors
Oh,
and Christmas lights.
Yes, they
Yes.
do.
And
Right.
so, and I'm assuming, and there's a lot of different, you get the brochures for Christmas decor.
Mhm.
But in that under those, they keep the lights and they store them. So I don't know how, whatever's cheapest or works best, but in that case, they would store them and bring them out.
And
So that,
AAA does that for us as well when they do the Tassel Park and Museum Gardens. They bring
Okay.
their lights, they
Yeah.
put them up, they obviously take, and then they store them all.
So I would say then
Um,
2 RFPs.
So,
or do you
So
do?
that we can compare and contrast.
Yeah.
Can I ask a
Agreed.
personal favor that might impact the rest as well?
Want an
So-
extra big tree?
Yeah, for sure, right in front of the store, but no. So that crosswalk
yes.
that is going from the Citgo to the parking lot that services our store and
Yes.
Cascade Roadhouse,
In the middle of the road?
in the middle of the road.
Yeah, question. I want to hear your feedback on it.
I want to blow my brains out, but I
Everybody
can I
hates
take that
that
off the
thing.
record? But I know why it's there. It. And I can tell you numerous times how close accidents has come because people whip around from here to turn left into Cascade Roadhouse. And then people are whipping around from here to turn right into it. And it's like, then people are in the behind them are braking because you have to, both sides that you're coming from, you have to take a pretty quick right and then a left or a left and then a right.
Yeah.
So, when it's snowing, you can't even see that it's there. Right? So like a lot of times you'll see people, because my wife will look out the window and people are like, oh shit, that's right there, because your headlights only go so far. Right? So my request is, can they put like street light, like the holiday lights, Christmas lights, whatever you want to call them, or a tree or something
Great
there
idea.
The median?
in the yeah, I know it's a weird
The
request.
road commission has issues with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I asked them specifically and they didn't say, like, about the bridge over the Thorn
Or
Apple.
just maybe a light, something that, hey, there's at night, like it can be challenging,
Yeah.
especially for
If
elderly
there's
people.
something
Yeah.
that's fairly breakaway, we can.
I
ask
can't believe
add
they
it to
let
the-
us
add it
do
to the
that
list.
isolation. I cannot believe they let Cascade
Really
do that.
weird about things sometimes, but
Yeah.
add it to the list of
Yeah.
things to ask them because it's a very good suggestion.
Yeah, that's a fantastic. Can we put a tree in? Or is
That's-
that
they
up to the
don't-
road
that's too
commission?
high.
A real tree?
And we
How about a bridge that just goes
Okay, so-
over the street?
So north of Aquinas,
That's what I keep saying.
in north of
Wall.
Aquinas, they just had, well, but that's the city
So
on Fulton.
So if
How
a
about
fake
could-
tree are you,
could-
or a real?
could we put it on a future agenda to talk about
Sure, yeah, that makes
the
sense.
sort of
Yeah, but that's a-
layout and
Yeah.
maybe design attributes
So-
of where some of these things are going and
Yes.
actually set some time aside to do it.
Because I can tell you, there's like 3 accidents waiting to happen there every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
like
So
it when
I
the
think
signs
that
are
that's
bad. I personally
Both
enjoy
a
that.
holiday conversation and a broader conversation.
Yes.
And the broader conversation, I think, needs to flow from the strategic planning because, we've gotten a lot of feedback about traffic in that very area.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna take it out in the meeting.
No, but I also get it because people fly down that road.
Right.
And so
Yes,
it's
they do.
tough for kids
It is.
and families, because there are a lot of people in the summer that walk
Yeah.
from over the bridge, from the river, and it's beautiful. And I love seeing those kids walk. And those kids can't ride their bike across there as it is, let alone without. So I get the purpose of
Scary.
it.
Definitely.
I'm not a fan of it, but I get the
I
purpose of it.
No,
Right.
I wouldn't either.
It's a 45-mile-an-hour speed zone.
People are going
Well, but we
65, 70.
can't-
I know.
That will definitely be something we discuss.
40
Many times.
In the village.
But the question of the
I live by
Christmas
the hell, I don't
decoration
see it.
thing,
I'm
let's
on
add.
45.
Yeah.
All right, bring it in, group.
So just,
All right, let's talk about what's most
Make me
important.
use the gavel.
So what's the status with the RFP? Just,
She's gonna issue 2 RFPs.
okay,
One to a vendor to provide the replacement lighting that we need. And 2, for the services of putting the lights up in those areas that we've had people do them.
do we
Is that
defer to them
correct?
as far as creative license about?
I mean, we own, some of the decorations have been consistently used from year to year, so I
The
don't know that
snowflakes.
creative
Yeah.
life, snowflakes.
Oh, yeah, I just mean
We've
lighting and
had
that kind of
given
stuff.
Input on
But
that.
but I'm,
that's why I
o-
said, can we put something on a future agenda, pretty near, not wait so long, so that we have some time to talk about what all that is and looks like and where it is and.
I like to wait till the very last minute when you're
Yeah,
down
right,
the
Okay,
wire.
good.
Yes,
We'll be
I'm
out
happy to
there.
put
And
it
then
on
when
the
you're against the
agenda,
wall,
but I also don't want to micromanage
and in
as a
doing,
DDA board, the placement
right,
of.
and in
specific
doing
lights.
research on a lot of these companies, they do design,
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah,
So that
Yeah,
may be a nice.
and I guess
option.
I'm mostly thinking about where we've just done that landscaping in that median and rethink, because it looks different now and maybe we should be thinking, do we really want to put another tree there? Or is there something else that we should do?
Right, we can form an exploratory committee and talk
Yeah.
about it in depth. That's a good
That's a
idea.
very good idea. Are you going to share that to me?
I absolutely will not, but I'd be present.
Okay.
I don't trust myself. to
Renee,
be-
that has Renee's name written all over it.
All I know is that is a committee I will not volunteer to join because that is a lack. I have no actual aesthetic gifts.
How
All
come
right.
this, how come the sicko sign is in, this is just, I didn't pay attention or hear it from anybody. Did you guys notice, so with the plantings, do we just allow them to have the sicko sign on township property or what's
That's,
this?
that's actually
own
their
it.
property.
They own it.
We
So-
just separate, we just
So
landscaped it.
got
for them?
permission.
part of that is township, part of that is
Mhm.
Citgo. So we
Mhm.
received permission from them to landscape around there
Mhm.
in their area. if you will.
Okay.
We have an agreement with them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so put holiday decorations on a future agenda.
Yes.
On a different committee.
And we'll separately assign people to deal with that. Okay. Article 10, goal building for the DDA board. Michelle, do you want to, I think that you had created kind of a vision statement that was included in the packet. I don't know how deep you would like to dive into it.
Not tonight.
Okay.
So it was just, it's here basically for everybody to review and that we'll have a deeper discussion on the agenda for our next meeting. So if everybody can have the time then to read through and come back to the meeting with their comments.
It's a great start. I looked through it and I think that we'll have some very good discussions. And now that we're, at least for the moment, done talking about the bus at the DDA level,
Yeah.
we can dive into some
Yeah.
of these more, fundamental questions
Yeah.
about our DDA.
And it was really because with the timeline for the strategic plan and a lot of that stuff is going to start dropping for us to kind of be ready to move when we have the ability to do that. to be
Totally agree.
making decisions.
Thanks for putting that together.
Yeah, great,
Awesome.
great work.
Thank you.
And Scott for the timeline for the bus, looking into it. Both
Happy
of you guys, thank you.
All right.
Team effort.
Article 11, any other business? Our next meeting is July 19.
July 19th, the next
Um,
meeting.
We have approved minutes of May 11 and 25 for the township board, but we're not going to go through those unless anyone has questions about them.
How can we do that? I'm just curious, just to review it, so we're all on the same page.
How can we review it?
The
What-
township board approved minutes.
Are you asking why they're included? or
Yeah,
why
I just
they're-
didn't ever hear.
At the last meeting, I mentioned that I wanted to include the minutes from the board meeting in our packet just as an informational item for those of
It's
us
a good idea.
who don't think to, actually
Go digging.
go digging or sit through the meeting, just to keep everybody aligned. And that kind of links into the next item with the joint meeting, which I know Ben is working on, and I'm guessing
Right,
he
so
hasn't.
he was thinking August timeframe for the joint meeting when more of the strategic plan
Yeah.
is put together and wrapping up. So
Good idea.
that was the timeline.
Great. Any other business to discuss?
So we've got the Mr. Westdale. Can we just go ahead and put him on the next, the issue?
Right, so
on
I
the-
have strategic plan update, Mr. Westdale, the holiday lights, the goal building, and then anything else that may come up between now and
Oh,
then.
I see.
And
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, sorry. I
Go
don't
for
wanna-
it.
No, one more thing, one more item is that the pots that were done, I feel like someone could talk to Daily about maybe putting boxwood in the center just to make them a little taller and it would, like just a single boxwood would fill those up. So they just seem very low and very Spartan.
And
Don't
did
they-
they, what's the story? Because I saw her
That's the second
replanting
go
them.
around.
Yeah, but
Oh.
I feel like we just got one,
Yeah.
if we just put a boxwood in each one and then it would limit the amount of flowers that we need and it would give it some height,
Okay, I
Good
know she did
suggestion.
add some flowers.
Make it
So-
so.
Yeah.
We
but
could-
She needs to be on that
still
aesthetic
seeing
committee.
some-
That's what I'm saying. Yes,
What?
exactly.
So,
Um,
okay, so then do we offer to pick up, I don't care, I'm just curious, tip.
I can talk to her. I mean, I know her. I can talk to her too. I mean, but I think
Well, Sandra's had good communication with her.
I talked to her about the last
Yeah,
request to
And
add
she
some
did
more
come back
plantings.
and did round 2
Yeah.
of the flat. So this is
Okay.
round 2.
because the boxwood
then-
can stay there year round,
So
And
that's
their
a
height.
question I would want to ask because of where they're located with being as close to the street as they are with plows and salt and things like
How
that.
tall
I-
do boxwoods? Do you know? I mean,
How tall?
Just
Yeah.
depends
I mean,
on
this,
how-
you could start with one that's,
Yeah.
a dwarf one and it will go taller over
Do you
time.
know, I mean, is it something we can prune? And I only
Oh, yeah,
ask because
yeah,
again,
yeah.
we have
It can be
some road
pruned.
commission.
Yeah.
you know,
no, they can be- They
limitations,
can be
so-
pruned. I mean,
Oh,
I
that would
sometimes-
be
Into a person.
Yes,
or-
right, yeah.
So I think, is your concern that we're going out of scope now and that we have to pay her more to do that?
Perhaps, she may see it that
So
way.
she has to, so I think, again, and this is, Sandra and I had a conversation after round one, and I said, not acceptable. And here's a whole bunch of images of things when they're first planted and then what they ultimately should look like. And I think we have to put that in the conversation too, that thank you for round two, but we're still looking for
A little more.
more.
Height.
Yeah,
Right.
It's not there yet.
no,
But
Right.
also the recommendation may save us money because you're gonna have less.
Less
plantings
flowers.
around it.
Right,
So I
yeah,
think it
exactly.
may be
Yeah.
just,
as
it'll
long as
wash
they live.
when
That's,
it's all said and
yeah,
done.
that's
Yeah.
my concern, that they will live in that environment over a long period of time.
Versus plastic.
Versus, yeah, no, we're not.
No plastic.
That's not the plan.
If she asks for additional funds for that, would you like me to bring that back to you before we move forward with that?
Can you just
or-
email us?
Yeah.
I think
Or
so.
just
If- if
email
you
the
just
two of
give her
us since we're on that
technic-
committee. I mean, yeah.
I think run it
Just
through
talk
them
to Renee and
first.
Michelle? Okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay.
Like,
Unless everyone cares.
20, 30 bucks times however
Right.
many.
Yeah. ha, ha,
Do we need to
ha.
Ever
authorize? up to
reviewed by
20?
council though,
Funny.
because it's a, you know.
Not a contract.
There is
There
nothing
is-
that's 20 or 30 bucks anymore.
Yeah, that is true. Not even babysitting.
We probably couldn't convene the next meeting at Jacobs Marina in Frankfurt, could we?
That would be nice, but I'm thinking
Can we all
no. Might
fit?
be a small violation of the
On your
Open Meetings
boat?
Act, so
They have a-
no.
they have a
You
nice
get a
pool
boat
there.
ride out of it?
It's tempting.
All right. I'll
Now
not
we're
be-
talking.
I'll not be here.
Appreciate that.
Cocktails?
Any other business?
We won't do anything important.
We'll try to save it for the meeting that you return to.
Just
We'll go
can I-
with that.
clarification real quick. I just want to make sure Grace is following up with Mr. Westdale's information, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
the where, yeah, I'll give it to you. Just
Yeah.
remember it's on the agenda and then I'll reach out
Yep.
to the American Legion.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I didn't need to.
Mhm.
You guys, I'm really glad. didn't know what I don't know why. it was-
Just remember, good meetings are not always quiet.
That's true. No,
Ugh, yeah.
this was very productive.
Very
All right,
productive.
other business? I'd now entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So maybe.
Gordon,
Second.
second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much,
you, guys.
everybody.
Made it.
We did.
Hey.
Record time.
I think we've had longer meetings.
Yeah,
We're not quite at
We
2
have.
hours.